Hello, I'm Jeff Pearce. This is a video for the Western mainstream media, but I doubt they'll listen, so if you follow me, I need your help. Today, tomorrow, I am asking you to send this video as a reply to every negative, ridiculous Ethiopia story you see on Twitter and Facebook that they put out there. Wallpaper their damn social media feeds with it. Why? Because we know that when the liberated areas are secured, people will talk. They'll share their stories about what the TPLF did to them, and as I promised before, a hungry dog has no loyalty. The media will eventually cover this, but for now, the enemy is taking advantage of gullible idiots to spread fear and hate. We have to do something. This is my something. And to you editors and reporters out there, I want to review what you're doing. Many of you are Americans. Remember Joe McCarthy? He held a paper up in the air and said, "I have a list of known communists in the federal government." And the papers ate it up. And they kept printing this bullshit and didn't challenge it. It took a long time to break the spell.
Senator, you've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
Ethiopia. The BBC runs a documentary that their own guy says is heartbreaking to watch. Tigrayans are supposedly starving. Never mind the fact that the BBC itself ran a story in July with a WFP official saying famine had been averted. Oh, and the very next day, after the reporter is heartbroken, the BBC runs a story saying residents are glued to radio sets and discussing the information on street corners, while others are preparing food to support the Tigrayan Defense Forces and also stocking up for themselves as a precaution. So if they have food to stock up and can give some to soldiers, how are they starving? Do please explain that to the rest of us. But you also quote this pompous windbag as if he's an independent expert, Alex DeWall.
So to those angry and defrauded citizens of what is still today the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, including those who dreamed of becoming subjects of a revived great Ethiopian empire, face your day of reckoning. Face the collapse of those dreams, the exposure of those lies.
You've quoted him in multiple articles, even though he is not independent and is on a first-name basis with TPLF officials. Is that impartial, objective journalism? This guy has caused untold damage to other countries, such as Sudan and Rwanda, and got it wrong according to people who know. But you still use him. Why? The mainstream media is now so hysterical, it's off the charts, and basic reporting rules go out the window. Again, let's take the BBC. This story reads, hyenas scavenging on the corpses of villages, cities and towns hit in airstrikes, elderly men and young women conscripted into armies. These are the horrific accounts emerging from a war that has left tens, if not hundreds of thousands dead in Ethiopia's historic region of Tigray. This is the photo the story first had. Only those hyenas aren't in Tigray, they're from Harar. And when the BBC got caught, it didn't apologize, it didn't explain, it merely swapped out the photo with a different one in what's known as a silent edit. That's not my main concern though. It's this. Where did this hyena story come from? It started with an aid worker who's conveniently anonymous. He didn't see the hyenas himself. He didn't see people execute himself. He's an unnamed source who claims there are 4 people who saw this. The man who saw the man who saw the man. What a neat trick. You say, oh, they're at risk for reprisal, so they don't have to answer for whatever they pulled out of their ass. But your job is to go and confirm. You don't get to just print it and claim, well, we couldn't get access. That doesn't excuse you from your obligation to verify the facts. There was a time in newsrooms where if you brought in this kind of copy, your editor would laugh you out of the newsroom, or you'd get your ass fired. Why is it acceptable today? Because it's Africa? Not good enough. Here is a story by Foreign Policy. An anonymous diplomat speculates, doesn't know for sure, isn't stating a fact, is speculating. that Eritreans could be planning to create concentration camps to isolate the local population from supporting the TPLF. Where is the evidence to support throwing this out there? None. Does this diplomat have to answer for creating fear and stoking hate? Not at all. Then we have this from Elizabeth Shackelford for the Chicago Tribune, which is just insane. Again, unnamed source. Notice a pattern. So far we've got hyenas scavenging bodies. We've got possibility of concentration camps. We've got severed heads.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Unnamed sources are a staple of reporting. I've used them myself. But in the stories I've done on Ethiopia, I went and got 5 independent sources who didn't even know each other, and my sources' statements were backed up by documents of the UN. Oh, and while we're on the subject, if there's a communication blackout, how do these sources get their information to you? The old saying goes that your job as a reporter is not to go to source A who says it's raining and then go to source B and print it's not raining. Your job is to go outside and find out if it's fucking raining. But you guys don't even bother to go to source B. I'm on record from my own frustrations with how the Ethiopian government handles its communications, but show us the articles and TV shows where you have bothered to quote Ann Fitzgerald, John Abink, Lawrence Freeman, Jamal Countess, who is reported from the field, for Getty Images, Sheba Tekest, who is reported from the field. And then there's me.
There are 300 people from the Maikadra massacre buried in this graveyard, 50 to 60 people in one spot alone. Their stories are still waiting to be told in full.
And I don't mean just one example of Al Jazeera having Ann Fitzgerald on, or occasionally the Ethiopian ambassador to France. I mean equal time, every time. Show us the op-eds in The Nation, the New York Times, the BBC that offer Ethiopia's side at the same frequency and repetition as you give to a terrorist group. When the UN whistleblower story went big, not one of you bothered to knock on my door and talk to the guy who did the original interview with them. One reporter did come later, then told me that my comments would be added to an article, but would have to be restricted to a line or two for space requirements. To which my answer was a polite fuck you. When you guys implicated yourselves over and over about the use of child soldiers, did you bother to cover this? Why not? You shot the footage yourself. New York Times, Associated Press, Reuters, you're all implicated. It's an international war crime, but did you cover it? No. And when it was confirmed? No. Tedros Adhanom is and was a member of the TPLF. He was a cabinet minister under Meles Zenawi. That is a clear conflict of interest with his statements today, yet not one of you think it's worth challenging this man over whether it's appropriate to use his bully pulpit at the World Health Organization to make partisan political remarks. Why not? You guys talk big all the time about speaking truth to power and holding politicians' feet to the fire. Why not with him? Not one of you has matched my copy, and I have leaked UN documents proving that their staff has looked the other way on war crimes and assaulting their own workers. This is a huge story. Why aren't you covering it? Why aren't you covering the fact that the UN, by its own document, proves that the communications blackout isn't total? Why aren't you asking them why they put this document as a hidden document on its website, accessible only to those with the right privileges? Tigrayans in IDP camps spoke to Professor Ann Fitzgerald, and what was the journalistic response? A reporter for The Economist didn't try to interview her. Instead, he tried to smear her reputation. And we have evidence of that. But instead of even that going out, you made him into a martyr because he was kicked out of Ethiopia.
Have you no sense of decency, sir?
When do you lose your racist, Eurocentric assumptions? A U.S. ambassador says,
"Let me be clear, there is no military solution to this conflict."
I don't care if she's black, it's still a racist assumption. Why can't a black African nation use its military against a terrorist group? But the US thinks it's okay to send arms to a white European nation fighting for its survival. You in the Western media have very efficiently, very deliberately tried to erase the facts on the ground. Okay, you control the narrative in Western media for now from New York and London, but I am warning you that the truth is coming. I have no doubt you will keep spinning bullshit from your sources with the TPLF for a while. But how long do you think you can hide what those liberated people have to say? The stories they'll tell about what life was like under the TPLF, about the child soldiers, about the families forced to give up one of their own and denied food. You are trying to smother the voices of a people with thousands of years of history, and they're very patient. This is your last chance to do the right thing before the right thing comes and bites you in the ass. So I ask you, have you completely abandoned all of your journalistic ethics? At long last, have you no sense of decency?